B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. We know we want to wish everybody a happy new month, happy new year, Elul. And we know that this week's Parsha Re'eh, modern halacha, we wanted to talk about charity because this week's Parsha is so full of it. Now the question is, can we test God and say, I'll only give you charity on condition that you make me wealthy? Because we know no money, no honey. Well, it says very interesting, twice in this week's Parsha talks about the mitzvah of giving charity. Parashat Re'eh Devarim, 5th book of the Torah, at Chamishi, chapter 14, pasuk 22, Aser ta'aser et kol tevuat zarecha. The Torah demands and commands us that we have to give 10% of all our wheat, the 5 wheats, barley and wheat and oats and etc. We have to give it to the Kohen. The Kohen, we give 1/60th terumah. To the Levites that have dedicated their life to God, we have to give 10%. And again in the Torah, just go ahead one chapter, 15, pasuk 7, towards the end of that chapter, all of it is talking about not being stingy and letting our, God forbid, our brothers and sisters die of hunger. It says, Ki yebecha evyon me'echad achicha. He says, if your brother is destitute, he has no money, therefore he's in a terrible situation, don't close your hand, open it. Patoach tiftach. Chazal learn, give and give. Even if 100 different times you have to give to 100 different people, it's not your money. Your life, your wife, everything you own is on loan to you from God. It's an illusion that you think you have me, I own this. No, it's all from God. 1 second you could have it, and if God forbid God doesn't want, he could take it all away from you. So if you want to keep God happy, help as many people as possible. And the Torah says, Ki patuach tiftach, rather surely open your hand and give. And the highest form of tzedakah is to solve the person's problem. So if the person needs a loan so his business shouldn't shut down, and you have more than enough money, bring 2 witnesses and write a whole, you could put a lien against his property, but give him the money, because lending money actually is a greater mitzvah than even giving charity. And so the Torah is very clear that we should not be stingy and let our brother crash down into the ground and his whole life should go blow up in flames. This is the wrong approach. Rather, we should have each other's back and support each other. Now the Gemara in Ta'anit, Daf Tet Amud Aleph, the Bavli in Ta'anit says, Aser ta'aser. You could homilically understand what the Torah is saying as Aser. Why does it repeat? What's the repetition? Aser ta'aser. So one shot is that you should give 20%. You should give 10 and 10. 10 to the poor people, 10% to the poor people, 10% to support the Torah. But another way to understand it is Aser ta'aser means give so you can become wealthy. So the Gemara over there says, we know we should never serve God and test God. For example, one is never allowed to say, God, I'll go learn Torah all day and then make me a millionaire. Or I'll go learn Torah instead of a marathon, I'll do a Torathon. I'll learn for 20 hours straight and heal my great-grandmother that's dying from a certain, God forbid, Rahman al-Litzlan, illness. This is not the right approach with God, but there's an exception to every rule. The Gemara very clearly says, since Malachi, the last prophet, says, we read this in the Haftorah, Uvachani nabazot, the last prophet, the last message he gave to the Jewish people is, I beg you, give tithing, give ma'aser, give 10% of your charity money. And I beg you, please test me on this. I will open up the heavens the gates of heaven, and you will have so much wealth that you can't even count. So the Gemara concludes from there that yes, it's true, we're never allowed to test God. We're not allowed to say, I'll pray 2 hours or I'll fast today and you have to solve this problem for me or deliver. We can't do that to God. But we can say, God, I'm going to give charity and make me wealthy. That such a test is A-OK. The question that the poskim ask is, does that only apply for grain? Because let's not forget, the classical economy that existed in the time of the prophets 2,000 years ago and 3,000 years ago when the Torah was given was not a monetary economy. Everybody, they were giving 10%, not from their money, but 10% from what? Ma'aser tevuah, from their grains and etc., their agricultural stuff to the Levites. Does the same thing apply? Can we test God with our money? Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Say I'll give $10,000 to charity. God, you're going to have to make my life easy and I'll be wealthy. So, regarding this, there's a three-way machloket. First, there's the opinion of the Tur, the son of the Rabbeinu Asher, the classical author that the whole Bet Yosef is based on. He says very clearly, anytime you give charity, you can test God with it and say, I'm giving it on condition that I become wealthy. The second opinion that we Sephardim paskin like, Maran Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Zechuto Yagen Aleinu, in the Shulchan HaTahor, in his pure book, our GPS that applies every second of our life, how to go left, right. Maran holds that it's exactly the same thing. So I apologize. The Torah basically says the same way you're allowed to test God with tithing grain and agricultural stuff, you're allowed to test God with money. The Bet Yosef says yes, but there's a caveat. You have to give 10%. So you can't give 1% and expect God to perform and make you bless that money that you gave. You have to actually give it, try to give exactly 10% or more, then you can expect from God in return, aser ta'aser. Aser b'shvil tetitazer. Give 10 in order so you become wealthy. You have to be strict to at least get that, meet the bar of 10%. Now, there's a third opinion that the Pitkei Teshuvah says, the Shlach HaKadosh, the Ya'avetz. There are many Ashkenazi poskim that they say, no, this whole Talmud, Bavli, that we talk about, Ta'anit, page 9a, and that whole thing the prophet Malachi is talking about, the last page of our prophets is only talking about grains, tithing from the agricultural stuff, not from the monetary, and therefore they say you cannot test God because it's one of the 613 commandments not to test God. So according to their opinion, you should stay away from mixing these two things again. Yes, if there was a time where the Bet HaMikdash was made and then you were careful, very meticulous and particular to give 10% of your grains, you could expect God to make you wealthy. But nowadays, since we don't have that, this mitzvah, parenthetically, today's shir is short and sweet, but there is a machloket in the poskim. Is the 10% even, is it only rabbinic? Many opinions hold that the 10% that we have to give from our money is only rabbinic. So that's why, by the same token, they would hold that you're not allowed to test God. The testing God is only from the Torah, and the only thing from Torah is to give 10% of your grains to the Levi. So for our Sephardim that follow the Shulchan Aruch, Baruch Hashem, it's very clear that we can test God and expect to get wealthy by giving 10%. And it would be a shame not to tell you that the Grazal says that, first of all, if you learn the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, Aser ta'aser, the most wonderful way to do the mitzvah is to give 20%. That's why it says 10 and 10. Aser ta'aser. And you could kill two birds with one stone if you give it to poor Torah scholars, which there's unfortunately an unlimited amount of in Israel or even in the East Coast, because you're both supporting, you're killing two birds with one stone. The guy's destitute, and you're helping him grow to become a Torah leader, because the greatest power in the world is the power of the Torah. It's light. And there's so much ignorancy in the Jewish nation that we need more Torah scholars and rabbinical leaders to spread the light and help Mashiach come, because we need him so desperately. Parenthetically, the Grazal also says somebody that does go that extraordinary, goes above halacha and does give 20%. He gives not 10% but 20%. Such a person can be guaranteed, and I know a few people that do this, that they will be also have an insurance policy of not having their money wasted by the government and getting sued and etc. Like, it's really, really, really a shield in front of monetary damage to come upon you and your family. So therefore, there's a guy told me he gives 20% and he's never gotten a parking ticket or a traffic ticket or have his items or merchandise from his home or anywhere stolen. It's like, since you went ahead and did this terribly difficult, it's very difficult to give charity, because we do put our blood, sweat, and tears to make an honest dollar. Now to give 20% away, but be that as it may, such things come with tremendous rewards. And I would be unfortunate not to mention the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says that from what we are observing, the fact of the matter is that you bring so much blessing into your life when you do give charity, that the charitable people are only getting wealthier. So therefore there are some exceptions, but the Aruch HaShulchan says that the people that were very charitable and did lose their money, there was other ulterior reasons for that. But rest assured, if you look at the Rambam, chapter 10, Hilchot Matnat Aniyim, he has a glorious, glorious explanation that ultimately you will never, never suffer. Nothing bad comes out of being a giver. And may Hashem really bless us, because the greatest wealth is health. May God bless all the nation of Israel with health, wealth, happiness, shalom bayit. And by you giving charity, you will get all of those blessings. And let's not forget that the greatest people to support, like the Chidah, is very, very adamant. The Chavetz Chaim brings this, that by giving to Torah scholars that are poor, and you're really killing three birds with one stone, because it says the poor of Israel is a special mitzvah to give the poor, and some poskim, the Khatam Sofer brings even the poor of Jerusalem. So if you find a poor Torah scholar in Jerusalem, that, according to many opinions, is the pinnacle, is the zenith of doing the mitzvah in the most perfect and wonderful way. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Please subscribe. I want to get to 500 subscribers. And have a wonderful day.